Hello and welcome to the Global Perspectives Show. I'm John Bersia, Director of the Global Perspectives Office at the University of Central Florida. Our guest today is Mr. Qubad Talabani, who is a representative of the Kurdistan Regional Government in Iraq in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Mr. Talabani. Pleasure to have you here today.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Tell us a little bit about what you do in your official role as a representative of the Kurdistan Regional Government.
Well, in representing the Kurdistan Regional Government, we are the top Kurdish liaison to the US government here in the United States, as well as to the United States Congress, to the think tanks and academic institutions. We interact with the media to get our message across to the American people. And we also have a responsibility to be there for the Kurdish community in the United States.
Now, how long have you served in this capacity?
I've served as the representative of the unified Kurdistan Regional Government since October of last year, 2006.
And previously you were working in other capacities?
Prior to May of 2006, there were two regional administrations in the Kurdistan region, and I was representing the Eastern administration based out of Sulaymaniyah.
Well, talk to us a little bit about your background so that we can have a sense of where you've come from. Most people viewing the show today will know that your father is Jalal Talabani, the president of Iraq, and that you come from a long background in terms of your family and political involvement.
Well, I do come from a somewhat political family. My family's been engaged in politics for several decades. My father for about 50 to 60 years, depending on when you want to start his career. My grandfather on my mother's side, Ibrahim Ahmed, was also a key Kurdish politician and writer. So we've had politics in the family all our lives. But I started off my career as an engineer. I studied engineering in England. I was raised in England by my grandparents. My parents were starting a revolution in Iraq, in the Kurdistan region. So my brother and I were raised in England. I studied engineering. I had dreams of becoming an automotive engineer and a car designer, and somehow naturally transitioned back into politics, and I don't regret that decision.
So did you ever work in the engineering area, or you went directly into politics?
No, I graduated from university, and I was looking out in the real world, trying to find a job, and I was interviewing with some automotive manufacturers, and was quite far ahead in one interview process. But then an opportunity came for me to work with the then representative of the Kurdish side in the United States, Dr. Barham Saleh, who's now Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister. And I thought, well, you know, why don't I try it? I came and interned with him for a few months, and it bit me. The bug bit me.
And you're still with it. Talk to us a little bit about the concept of Kurdistan within Iraq. You often hear reports, read reports about this being the only piece of Iraq that works well. Why do people say that, and what is there about Kurdistan that some people who are watching this today may not know?
Well, we call it the other Iraq. The Iraq that we see, unfortunately, in the newspapers and on TV is one of violence, is one of insecurity, it's one of political ramblings, and one of inefficiency. But what we don't see too much of in the press is what's going on in the Kurdistan region. Now, the Kurdistan region of Iraq encompasses the three northern governorates of Sulaymaniyah, Duhok, Erbil, and also parts of the Kirkuk governorate as well. It has been semi-autonomous or relatively independent since the first Gulf War, when after Saddam crushed the Kurdish uprising, forced the international community, the US in particular, to set up a safe haven. The no-fly zones were established, and that allowed for the Kurds to move back into the towns and villages once Saddam had evacuated them. We were able then to set up our governing institutions in the early and mid-90s. We had a very rocky period throughout the mid-90s where the two main Kurdish factions actually fought each other, were immature. They didn't have the political maturity to deal with the land that they have just received after fighting for it for so long. But over time, we had our own national reconciliation process, and the parties came together with the assistance of the United States, the United Kingdom, and Turkey, and we forged what was then referred to as the Washington Accord in 1998. And from then, we began implementing this peace accord, and this results to the success story we have today, which is a thriving civil society in the heart of the Islamic Middle East, where tolerance is the norm, where you have a wide range of ideologies and beliefs implemented. You can be religious and conservative, you can be secular and very liberal, and this is accepted, and people are by and large allowed to live the life they wish to choose. Our governing institutions are improving all the time. We have put in place a robust good governance program where we're training our civil servants, our mid-level and senior level managers in the government. We are now no longer isolated from the international community. We have made contact with academic institutions, with governments, with governance institutions around the world to help us build up the caliber of our civil servants, which is why we have what it appears to be, and we're proud to say, an effective government, effective by our standards, by the region's standards. While we are not a democracy, we are democratizing. This is, I think, an important distinction to make. We're proud of the reforms that we have put in place. We're proud of the freedom of speech that exists in our region and the freedom of assembly that exists in our region.
So those would be pluses. What about on the negative side? Where are the areas where you think you could improve and have the opportunity to?
I think we always need to build on our governance. We need to root out corruption. We need to have a much more balanced equality between men and women. We need to root out some barbaric and prehistoric customs such as honor killings. This does happen in very rural parts of the Kurdistan region, where a female member of the family is killed for committing an act that brings dishonor upon that family. I'm proud to say that the Prime Minister of the Kurdistan region has made this one of his top priorities, and we have put in place tough laws that will punish anyone that is committed of these crimes and convicted of these crimes. And these are the kinds of reforms that we're putting in place to bring ourselves up to a standard that's acceptable today internationally.
In terms of political participation in the evolving system, is that as full as it might be, or are there still some people who are not effective parts of the political process?
We have a fairly plural system of governance. Our parliament, the National Assembly, as we call it, the Kurdistan National Assembly, is a very plural assembly. You have representatives of the two main Kurdish parties, the Kurdistan Democratic Party and the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. You have smaller Kurdish political parties, such as the Kurdistan Socialist parties, such as the Communist Party and the Toilers Party of Kurdistan. You also have Islamic leaning parties. You have the Islamic Union of Kurdistan, strongly represented in the assembly. And we also have seats that have been given to representatives of the Christian community of Kurdistan, as well as the Turkmen and Yazidi communities. The Turkmens are an ethnically Turkish group. The Yazidis are a separate religion from Islam.
Talk to us about the economic developments that have taken place in Kurdistan. This seems to be the story that resonates well everywhere.
We're proud of the development that's taking place in Kurdistan. You're seeing today, you can't count the number of cranes that you see in the buildings that are going up, and the malls that are being built for our citizens, and the recreational facilities, whether it's bowling or whether it's swimming pools. There's a huge boom in construction. primarily led by the private sector. We've invested heavily in putting in place the right regulations, the right economic policies that has been attractive to the private sector. We are now trying to reach out to the international community to try to get as much foreign investment into Kurdistan. We have recently passed a very liberal investment law. It's a very investor-friendly investment law. It allows for the full ownership of property by the foreign company or the domestic company, as well as the full repatriation of profits, which is quite unique in that part of the world. These laws have been enacted purely with the investor in mind, because we know that in order to take our level of development to the next stage, we need a more vibrant and active private sector, and this is one of those things that we as the government are not managing. We're not micromanaging this process, but we're ensuring that activities fall within the regulations that we assign.
I've talked to visitors to Kurdistan who have also been to China, and they say of all the places on the planet, these two, in terms of how busy everyone seems to be, are very similar. Kurdistan, of course, being much smaller, but that same type of activity. You mentioned all the cranes. Where is a lot of the international interest coming from? Is it mostly from the West, or is it largely from the East, or a combination of the two?
Well, it's actually surprisingly, or not, coming from the region. For example, our Board of Investment has approved a $5 billion worth of investment projects from last year through to this year. And I could say that 75 to 80% of that is from Turkey. When you read about the tensions between Kurds and Turks on the political level, you rarely read about the economic successes that have been reached between Turkey and the Kurdistan region. And many critical infrastructure projects that are built in Turkey, in the Kurdistan region today, whether it's the airport, whether it's gas and oil installations, whether it's roads, bridges, is Turkish money and Turkish companies. And we've seen the benefits of a fruitful economic relationship between the two sides. And we're hoping that this economic relationship can actually lead to better political relationships and build some of the political bridges that may have been burnt. But while we've invested a lot in economic development, we are really trying to focus on our own human development. And we're putting in place very robust policies to educate and professionalize our civil servant workforce, because without that, you need the balance.
For those who may not know the details of the situation, could you talk a little bit about the Kurds in Turkey who have a difference with the government of Turkey and the Kurds in Kurdistan of Iraq, and how your relations are between Kurdistan and the Kurds in Turkey?
Well, the Kurds are spread over several countries: Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Syria. We have about 50,000 Kurds in Armenia. We also have some Kurds in the former areas of the former Soviet Republic. And each grouping of Kurds has their own issues with their host country. The Kurds of Iraq have been fighting for decades for their rights, for their autonomy, for federalism within Iraq. And we're proud to see today that we have reached our desired goal, to have a federal democratic Iraq. And the Kurds have proven to be a major success story in Iraq. Now the Kurds of Turkey have had different issues, have had different demands, and have sought different means to get those demands. And we're all aware of the bloody war that took place between the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, and the state of Turkey. It led to the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians and officials on both sides. And that violence has ebbed and flowed recently, and all sides, Iraq, Turkey, the Kurdistan region, the US, we've been trying to rack our brains to try to find a peaceful and lasting and sustainable solution to this problem. We do not believe, many of you may be aware of the tensions, the escalation of tensions recently between Turkey and Iraq, and Turkey and the Kurdistan region of Iraq. But we strongly believe that this issue can only be resolved peacefully. If we want a sustainable solution to this problem, we have to have a peaceful solution to this problem. Violence has not worked. Turkey's 30-year war against the PKK could not eradicate the PKK. It only fueled further nationalist sentiments. And we need to be trying to calm nationalist sentiments today and come up with mechanisms that will ensure lasting peace for the two nations.
If you were to talk about some possibilities in the political realm, what are the types of things that you think should at least be on the table? Things that the Kurds could consider, things that Iraq could consider, things that Turkey could consider?
Well, first and foremost, the PKK must issue an unconditional ceasefire. And that's, nothing can happen while there is a war going on. And the PKK, we have been urging for them to issue the ceasefire. Once that has been issued, then I think we can certainly all entertain the idea of coming up with a sustainable solution that could involve a partial amnesty to those members of the PKK that may not have been involved in acts of terrorism or acts of violence against the state of Turkey. We can talk about how the Turkish government can build better goodwill with the citizens of the southeast, but this is now where we're entering into the realms of internal Turkish politics, and it's not for me to tell Turkey or another neighboring country how it should manage its own citizens, but we are always here as a sounding board. If we can be helpful in any way, we'll gladly do that.
Talk to us about how the Kurds perceive each other. There seems to be this external view that you're all part of the same group and we don't make distinctions between the ones in Iraq and the ones in Turkey and other places. But then even within Turkey, this is not a homogenous population. And I would imagine that most people probably don't care for the violence that's perpetrated by a relatively small number.
There was a period in the 80s and the early 90s where many Kurds in Turkey sympathized with the Kurdistan Workers' Party and believed that after all these years, after 70 odd years, that only violence can bring about this. But I think the experiment of Iraqi Kurdistan has changed that opinion, where the Kurds, yes, the Kurds of Iraq, we fought our armed struggle against the regime, but it was really ultimately politically, diplomatically, that we were able to achieve what we have achieved today. It was internationally that we have achieved what we've achieved today. And agreements with the United States, with the United Kingdom, with Turkey, with Iraq, constitutionally, institutionalizing our rights. And that's resonated very well with the Kurds of Turkey. And we've seen very recently a very surprising statistic in Turkey. In the recent parliamentary elections in Turkey, more Kurds voted for the ruling AK Party, the Justice and Development Party, than they did vote for the Kurdish parties that ran in those elections. And that's an indication of a shift, of a paradigm shift for the Kurds of Turkey, that are realizing that through dialogue, through politics, through peace, that you can reach your objectives. And the more democratic Turkey becomes, the more likely that you can achieve those or attain those objectives peacefully. The closer Turkey gets to Europe, the more likely it is for those freedoms to open up for all citizens of Turkey. And Turkey has taken great strides to that effect. But this issue of the PKK and the difference of opinions on how to address this issue needs to be resolved.
Other than the PKK, what are some of the challenges facing Kurdistan, specifically in Iraq?
Well, obviously Kurdistan, the Iraqi Kurdistan is landlocked. We have Turkey as one neighbor, we have Iran as another neighbor, we have Syria as another neighbor. So we do have a geopolitical issue to try to finesse and manage, and it's been difficult. We've had ups and downs with our neighbors over the years. We also have on an Iraqi level, we have the interaction between the Kurdistan region, the regional government, and the federal government in Baghdad, and ensuring that we abide by Iraq's constitution, ensuring that disputed territories where Kurds had been previously evicted from their homes because of their Kurdish identity, that this injustice is rectified, and we have articles in Iraq's constitution that lay down the framework for reversing these injustices and reversing this genocide that took place against the Kurdish people. And these are ongoing challenges, intertwining Kurdistan within Iraq's national reconciliation process remains to be a challenge. We have the hydrocarbons law, the oil law for the country, which is yet to be finalized, and the Kurds are playing a critical role in this. And the oil law for Iraq will be critical for the Kurdistan region. So we want to ensure that we have the oil law that's right, that's just, that's acceptable to our leaders and to our people, that ensures it stays within the spirit of Iraq's constitution, which grants a lot of powers to the regions to develop their own natural resources and to enter into contractual agreements with domestic and international companies. And we've seen the benefits of that recently with several US and international companies signing oil production sharing agreements with the Kurdistan region. These have fallen in line with Iraq's constitution, but it's caused some controversy here in Washington and also back in Baghdad. So the sooner we resolve the national hydrocarbon law issue, I think the quicker we can get on a path to enter into larger scale contracts, develop the infrastructure, and start to benefit, so the people of the Kurdistan region can benefit from the natural wealth of the Kurdistan region.
When you look at the Kurdish population worldwide, beyond the region itself, where I suppose the largest concentration would be, are there significant pockets in other countries or areas, and including in the United States, just for those who may not know?
We have a very large Kurdish population in Turkey. In Europe, I mean. Obviously, there's 15 million Kurds in Turkey, but in Europe, we have several hundred thousand scattered across Germany, Belgium, United Kingdom, and Sweden. We have probably about 50,000 Kurds in the United States and Canada. Not that great a number, and they're spread across this great continent. But keeping in touch with them and ensuring that they're good citizens of the countries that they're living in, that they're contributing to in a productive way to those countries is partly our responsibility, especially here in the United States. And it's and this has also been helpful for us in terms of getting people that have been educated in a specific field or have gained an expertise in a specific field to come back to Kurdistan after having lived abroad for 10, 15 or 20 years, are going back to Kurdistan with what they've learnt and are applying their trade politically, economically or academically in the Kurdistan region. And we're benefiting from this diaspora now. And we're hoping to be able to strike a better partnership with the diaspora to serve our mutual needs.
You were there as a visitor very, very recently. What was your impression of how things were going? Were you more optimistic, or less optimistic than you were a year ago and a year before that?
You know, every time I go to Kurdistan, I always get more optimistic because I see new developments. I meet with people that I haven't met with before, and whether it's student groups or whether it's business associations or whether it's religious associations, and you just get a sense that there is a real drive to move forward, a real drive to leave the tragedy of our past behind us, bearing in mind that it was only 20 years ago that genocide was carried out against our people, where chemical and biological weapons were dropped on our people, where our villages were flattened and our wells were sealed up. There isn't a family member in Kurdistan. There isn't a family in Kurdistan that hasn't lost a family member. And to see that the way that we have been able to not forget the genocide, because we'll never forget the genocide. It's always going to be ingrained into our society, and it must be. But how to use the strength from surviving that genocide to forge ahead and build what we have built, to be proud of what we have built with the support of the United States. And I hope, I really wish more Americans could see the success story, and I really wish that more American officials would take some credit for this success story, to be proud of this success story. We do see this partly as an American success story. It's one of the few American success stories in the Middle East today. It's one of the few foreign policy successes of the United States in the Middle East today. And we do get disappointed when US government officials either shy away from the success of Iraqi Kurdistan or view the success of Iraqi Kurdistan as potentially a threat to the unity of Iraq. We've said all along that the stronger the Kurds are, the more successful the Kurdistan region is, the more we can play at a national level in Baghdad today, the more we can bring the warring factions together in Baghdad and create true national reconciliation in the country.
So what would you say to people who are listening who may be enticed by your conversation into thinking might be a good time to visit Kurdistan? It probably wasn't on their radar screen before, but they might now see it, appreciate it as sort of an area of relative tranquility inside Iraq.
I think that people should visit Kurdistan. People should have, and I'm not, I haven't lost my marbles when I say this, but you can have your vacation in Kurdistan. You can have a vacation in Iraq today, and that's in the Kurdistan region. You can fly there from many European capitals, from many regional capitals. Our airports are fully operational. Our economic and business climate is thriving. Our universities are buzzing with activities. We would love to have student exchanges and faculty exchanges to really tell people, look, this is the other Iraq.
Good. On that note, I will conclude and thank you, Mr. Talabani, for joining us today. And thank you for the Global Perspectives show. I'm John Bersia. We'll see you next time.